bring back states' rights. It's time to bring back states' rights, partly because states' rights is an important part of the architecture of our Constitution. But it's also important to bring back states' rights because states' rights are a check, and in some cases the only check, on a lot of the extremism and craziness that's coming out of the federal government, which is to say, out of the Biden administration. I'm really happy to see the sort of states' rights activity that's going on around the country. Just see that Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, our governor, says, I just signed a resolution asserting Texas sovereignty under the 10th Amendment over all powers not granted to the federal government by the U.S. Constitution. The 10th Amendment very clearly, the powers not given to the federal government specifically are reserved to the states and to the people. And then, even more impressive, Mark Brnovich, the Attorney General of Arizona, writes to Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, and basically says, butt out. He says, listen, you're violating the 10th Amendment. I'm now quoting him. My office is not amused by the DOJ's posturing and will not tolerate any effort to undermine or interfere with our state Senate's audit to assure Arizonans of the accuracy of our election. We stand ready to defend federalism and state sovereignty against any partisan attacks or federal overreach. And then this important P.S. It is important to remember that the states created the federal government, not the other way around. Today, our federal government has largely forgotten the founders' intent, but my office has not. So this is great stuff, because this is basically telling the federal government, you stay in your lane and we'll stay in our lane. Now, of course, I'm very familiar with the left and its usual states' rights, Dinesh, are just a pretext for slavery and segregation. States' rights were used in the past to defend these horrors of American history. That's what states' rights really means. No, that's actually not what states' rights means. The argument about states' rights began with the debate over the Constitution in 1789. It had at that time nothing to do with slavery or segregation. It had to do with the fact that we have a sort of divided sovereignty. Madison called our system partly federal and partly national, meaning some powers to the states, some powers to the government. And this whole idea that somehow the federal government represents the people, the federal government is the defender of individual rights. No, the states represent the people. State representatives, state legislatures are no less elected by the people as federal legislatures. So this sort of idea that there's an automatic presumption of the larger, the federal over the state is absurd. We have multiple attachments, by the way, even in ordinary life. We have local attachments to our family, to our neighbors, to our friends, to our local community, and then we have larger attachments to our state, to our country. And there's no automatic assumption that one attachment is better than the other. Will anyone say, for example, hey, my attachment to my family is just really local, so it should be overridden by my attachment, let's say, to my local community? No, actually my attachment to my family is much stronger. So, here's the point. The Democrats used states' rights to promote slavery and segregation, but that's what they did. They abused the idea of states' rights. So the problem is not with states' rights. It's with the Democrats. It's kind of like saying that, guns are being used by criminals to murder and rob people. Therefore, we have to get rid of guns. No, therefore we have to get rid of criminals. Keep the guns, lock the criminals up, then this won't happen. So by and large, what we're saying is that guns are not the problem, and similarly, states' rights are not the problem. The problem is the way that those things have been abused in the past. But fortunately, we're talking about states' rights here, claimed not by the Democratic Party, the bad guys, but by the Republican Party, the good guys. And in this case, states' rights are being used to tame the power of an overreaching federal government. We don't need less states' rights, we need more of them.